Welcome to the Base Coat Brainiac podcast. My name is Austin Hauser. I am Chief Brainiac over here at Base Coat Marketing. And if you own a painting business, you are in the right place. Today, I have Jason Scholl back for round two to discuss all things commercial. Jason, thank you again for being here, man.
Of course, brother. Thank you so much. I had a blast in the first part and happy to keep it going.
Yeah. So last time we talked about a lot of how you got into this industry, the things that have worked for you. The things that I really want to touch on though is ultimately your expertise around commercial work in general. And I think there's a lot of opportunity out there for a lot of guys in the painting industry, right? They start out in residential because it's easy. You can talk to a homeowner. It's relatively easy to estimate. And then they see this shiny object in the form of commercial work that is larger projects, potentially larger margins. And but it's a completely different mindset, right? It's not about high volume of lead flow and it's less of a numbers game and more of a relationship game. So today I would really like to go an inch wide and a mile deep to kind of see how you have scaled appropriately on the commercial side. So why don't we just start from like an easy question? On the residential side, we experience quite a bit of seasonality. People are not interested in repainting their house around the holidays or, end of quarters. It becomes extremely difficult and expensive to generate lead flow. Commercial, do you see that as being as seasonal as the residential industry is?
Great question. It's a bit cyclical for us. Generally, the timeline plays out this way for us. So the first quarter is more times than not a little slow. So when we're having this conversation, think about the CEO of a commercial company, sometimes a billion-dollar company. Think about how that person operates and how their schedule is based. Hint, they get lots of time off. So summers, they don't want to be around, right? So there's a little bit of an ebb and flow that after being here for 23 years, I can kind of pinpoint. It's not an exact science, but it's pretty damn close. I've learned that I'm seeing it again this year. So there's a huge push at the end of the year. Everybody has to spend their budget, right? So
tax dollars, yeah.
Yeah. So here's generally how it goes. First quarter is rollover projects that were large that from the end of the year that did not have to be in before the holidays. So January, a little bit slow. We start to see bidding really heat up in February and March. Jobs are awarded. We go in for permits, generally April. A lot of times there's a May start. This is for the large projects. I'll touch on the small projects in a minute, but large projects are generally a few months for us, right? 4 or 6 months, depends. So you get a permit in April or May, and you're working through the summer, because what they don't want to do is sit with architects, designers, bankers, brokers. They don't want to be out shopping for property in the summer. It's really, hey, build our space over the summer. Call me if you need me type thing. Some projects will have construction meetings. Oftentimes we won't. It's just done via email, and it's, hey, call me when you're done. So first quarter, a little bit of feeling out, and then it's a lot of small projects. So there's always a big push on small projects, meaning a couple thousand square feet or paint carpet jobs, these sorts of things. There's a big push in the first quarter because that's not a big nut they need to spend. That's not going to affect their budget. Hey, here's $100,000. Let's refresh this place before summer, that sort of thing. And then the big projects, you're doing all of that paper pushing and estimating and planning and zoning in the first quarter. And then second quarter starts to really pick up. Summer, a lot of times is, like I say, is the larger projects. Smaller projects, not so much, because as you can probably attest, oftentimes the small projects are the biggest pain in the ass. We're putting people on top of one another. There's a lot of coordination. And frankly, folks don't want to be bothered. Where it might be more ideal to bury a framer there for all of June. So there's not a lot of questions that need to be answered. Those questions were already vetted out in the spring. So, and then the larger projects bridge the summer. And then July, August, we usually see the heaviest bidding process. So my architectural contacts will tell me in July or August, kind of, that's kind of how I get the pulse, right? Like, hey, we're talking to a lot of clients. So CDs, construction documents usually take a few weeks. So if somebody's talking to an architect in July or August, that's a good tell for us, because oftentimes the project will start plus or minus Labor Day. And then there's a huge push to the holidays. The most stressful, busy times for us, unfortunately, are the fourth quarter leading up to Christmas, because commercially, a lot of offices close down the last 2 weeks of the year. So every year, there's a frenetic pace to get projects done to the end of the year, mid-December specifically, so that their furniture folks can come in, their modular furniture and office furniture, and their teledata vendor, the phones, the internet, that sort of thing. So a lot of folks want certificate of occupancies or use in occupancy, depending on the township. A lot of those folks want them from me mid-December so that they can do their thing for the next 2 weeks where their office is closed. And then they always want to go live January 2. So for me, the project is getting punched out, finalized by the township, and basically sitting ready for move-in and mid-December. And then I kind of give them the keys and they do their thing for 2 weeks, move boxes, that sort of thing. Commercial is very strict on deadlines because there's a lot of parts in place necessary for a move. I think maybe I touched on this on part one, but if you and your wife are getting your kitchen done and I tell you that I need a couple more weeks, but it's going to be the most phenomenal kitchen that you've ever seen, I can probably convince you to do that. I can't necessarily do that on the commercial side because there could be 5 tractor trailers of moving trucks lined up. There could be $100,000 in holdover rent at their other location. And sad but true, 99% of the clients want you to finish up the day their lease ends. Rarely do I get a project done and they say, hey, we have several months left at our existing space. That's just how it works.
Yep.
So it's, I don't have the luxury to extend deadlines. So I'm going through it right now on a handful of projects I'm bidding where they'd like a proposed schedule submitted with the bid. And what I do is I swear by under promising and over deliver. Do not over promise right off the bat. It is just going to lead to a myriad of issues for you, between you and the client, your guys, right? What superintendent wants to get a schedule and say, I can't do this? Well, you have the next 3 months to stress about it. And so I try not to do that. I just submitted a project and I gave them a proposed 16-week schedule. Really, I need 12 to 14. And what I'll do is when I get the project, I have some fluff in the schedule. And what I'd love to do is halfway through the project, say, hey, things are going well. If this is the case, right? Things are going well. It looks like we might be able to pull your deadline up a bit. And then they're happy. And frankly, it doesn't really affect them necessarily because they still have the parts in place that I mentioned previous. So there's just a little breathing room at the end where, many projects, as soon as we lay carpet, we're dropping ceiling tiles and we're painting and we're installing millwork. But as soon as we install carpet, hey, the furniture guy wants to come in and he's right on top of us. We try to avoid that. Probably about half the time we're able to avoid that based on their schedule and hours, and half the time we are not. So when a furniture vendor comes over, they love to take ownership of the entire space. They want to put panels everywhere, cubes and desks, and they want to lay masonite out and just take over the entire space. I don't prefer that, but if that does happen, I do want the space punched out beforehand, because all too often we haven't completed a punch list yet. The furniture vendor comes through, bangs up walls, nicks up the elevator, rips carpet, scratches LVT. And then when they're ready to move in, when the cubes and teledata are done, oftentimes the client says, hey, let's do a punch list. And it's like, well, time out. there's 2 weeks of damage that took place. So we're really prudent on taking those photos. I keep the superintendent there during that process, even if he's done and he has somewhere else to go. It's like, hey, do me a favor, start the day there, take some pictures. We haven't had a chance to punch it out, just to keep everybody responsible.
Love it. And yeah, the reason I started with that question is, again, on the residential side, it is very slow Q4. Commercial, as you mentioned, they are trying to spend those budgets ahead of the tax deadline. And it's due to the fact that, generally speaking, that is when the businesses find the best time at the end of the year, is when they know their budget, it's going to be the most accurate, right? So there's a big opportunity for a lot of guys out there in the residential space to start breaking into commercial. Now, the one thing I wanted to bring up is you used a lot of industry terms that from the professional painting space is not going to be relevant to them. But I have you on here because even though your company is more of a general contracting type of shop, it's still all the same game. Commercial is based on relationships, and it's very unlike the residential side. Can you tell me a little bit about how you go about building those relationships? Where do you find these people that are interested in hiring a company like yours?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. It is extremely relationship based. So for the first 21 years of my tenure under the old ownership, we did not market at all. It was all existing relationships for the most part. Of course, there was the one-off who got our name from somebody and they called us. So, excuse me, we didn't really market at all. That's why when I purchased the company, I thought, okay, there's some low-hanging fruit here. I can start a website, which we didn't have. I can post on my LinkedIn. I can start an Instagram account, and I can do these sorts of things to help bump the bottom line in hopes that I would be able to make up for some of the revenue I was losing from the old owner leaving, because it was me and him who generated revenue. So as soon as the transaction took place, I lost, in theory, half of my revenue. Now, that didn't happen because we had conversation with Luke Miller's contacts, who many of them I knew and many of them I didn't. They said, hey, Jason's taking over. If you'd like to work with him in the future, feel free to call him. I did see a drop just because those relationships fell off, but based on the other 3 items that I mentioned, I was able to make that up and more based on creating new relationships. So the creation of new relationships is extremely important to me. I love people. I'm a people person. The business development is the most enjoyable for me. And frankly, I think that's the best. That's where my skill set is best used. I tried to do a kind of pro and con analysis on myself. And I had tried to be really honest, like what's a heavy lift for me and what's a light lift. And doing this is a really light lift for me. Poring over a spreadsheet all day or doing a takeoff on a plan on my computer for 2 hours is a heavy lift for me. So I try to delegate the heavy lifts and take on the light lifts for me. So as it pertains to new stuff, I'm trying to do more of this. I'm trying to, spiff up our social media. I'm trying to stay on top of our website. I'm trying to, hand out business cards where I can. I just did it yesterday. There's a property that just went up for lease near my office, which needs a complete overhaul. It's just an old beat up building. And I didn't notice, which is kind of rare because it's kind of a small pool where we are of commercial developers, but I didn't notice this individual sign. So I went to their website. I reached out to their contact page, said, hey, I'm a local commercial builder. I'm near you. If I can be of resource, let me know. Resource meaning if I can connect them with an architect, if I can maybe give them a little additional pull in the township, which I have a great relationship with. If I can connect them with a subcontractor, great. I have an abundance mindset. I believe that there's plenty of work out there for everybody, right? So I try to add value, right? And if you can add value, the work will happen. So that's kind of how I created and continue to create new work, is using using power versus force, right? David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force, is a big part of kind of how I operate. I just try and be in a headspace that allows me to provide power versus force. As soon as you start having to force getting work, I have found it's a problem. The analogy that works for me is I'm a baseball player my whole life. Each day I try to get in the batter's box and I just try and wait for my pitch, right? And my pitch is all of the seeds that I've planted over the last 23 years and have continued to water by reaching out to them, having coffee, following up on a project, these sorts of things. And as soon as you start chasing pitches or forcing work or following up too many times, that's really putting you in a negative position, I believe, both in the customer's mindset at that time and moving forward. Never seem desperate, right? And for me, it's add value and just be there, be ready for when that pitch comes right down the middle to hit. And historically, not doing that was tough for me because that's who I am. And I watched the leader of the company not do that. And that was kind of frustrating for me. So that was one of the first things that I was really licking my chops at starting to do, is just be a people person, be out there, be available, go to networking events. And again, if you are around it, the proximity principle, right? Like if you're around all that, you're liable to be part of that. And as soon as you start forcing it, as soon as you start following up with clients a lot, you seem desperate. Then it's, hey, your number was 500. I know you followed up with me 8 times. Seems to me like you're desperate. Hey, if you could do this job for $450,000, maybe we have a deal. And that works. There's a place in the market for that. There's a place in your company for someone maybe giving you last look and saying, oh, this guy seems like he needs a project. Let me try and have a conversation with him. That's fine too. But don't seem desperate. Get yourself out there, be around, add value, be more interested in folks than trying to be interesting is something that I really provide. I really try and stick with, right? So I try and provide some value to my clients and be interested in what they are up to. Hey, what are you guys up to? Any projects in the pipeline? Who have you worked with recently? Be more interested in what they're into, and then listen, and then try and kind of insert yourself where you can. Hey, maybe I'll connect you with this guy or that guy. And the relationships that I have already, I just really try and cultivate them. So bumping the top line is not of major concern for me. Cultivating the bottom line is a huge concern of mine. So I was historically too busy in the previous regime because we were understaffed to cultivate any sort of relationships. It was hi, bye, handshake, thank you, here's the keys, goodbye. Now, by freeing up my schedule, by hiring some people to do some of my heavier lifts, again, I can focus on my lighter lift, which is, hey, Austin, I know we did a project for you last summer. What's this summer looking like? Do you have anything cooking? Would you like to meet for coffee, lunch? Would you like to, chat about anything? Then no, everything's fine, nothing planned, but thanks for checking in. And that helps you stay in their mind. Again, be around, right? Oh yeah, I forgot Jason did a job for us. You know what? We would like to spend some of that fourth quarter budget this year. Let me reach out to him and see if they'd be interested in doing X, Y, or Z for us.
So good. You mentioned things like adding value. It's so important to just put yourself out there and not expect anything else in return. A lot of guys look at relationships as a transactional opportunity. And every time you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure. If you actually get to know the people and care about them and care about what they want and what their needs are, even if that doesn't align with you, be a resource. And I love the fact that you mentioned really focusing on the relationships that are interested in you as well. I like to look at any relationship as, I don't know, like if you're in a high school relationship and, if your girlfriend doesn't love you anymore, why invest the time into that, right? Invest the time into inbound lead flow especially on the commercial side. It's all about cultivating those relationships if you start doing cold calling and outbound, if you're going to start there, great, but don't make it transactional, right? And it's such an important concept, and I think a lot of guys overlook that, especially on the residential side. It is very much more transactional. It's down to the penny. There's a lot of price shoppers out there. There's definitely value in that as well, but it's at scale, at volume, which is very unlike the commercial side. Now, one thing I do have a question about is you obviously work with subs on the painting side, and it sounds like you rely on your subs to actually perform the estimate for a job and deliver that to you. What do you typically look for in a sub? So as a general contractor, you're out there looking for the best painting crew in the Philadelphia area. What are you looking for? How do you find them? Do they reach out to you? Do you reach out to them? Where does that relationship start?
Yeah, it's another good question. I would say half the time, maybe 2/3 of the time, somebody reaches out to me, and the remainder, I reach out to them. Right off the bat, what I would say is the same thing that I tell all of my subcontractors, particularly the painters. If you are a painter, please, if you are any subcontractor, but if you are a painter, please do not nickel and dime the customer. That will create friction, and I'm looking for less friction. So I had this recently where a painter reached out to me he's been reaching out to me for the longest time. And my line to him was, look, you are going to get it in quantity. You might not get it in quality, but you'll get it in quantity, right? Some jobs, you might have to paint around the furniture installers. It's not ideal, but it is what it is in commercial. You may have to use a product that you don't recommend because of budgeting, because of company standards on their part. Just do it, right? And the biggest thing for me is when you're pricing a commercial project, or when you're pricing a project specifically for me, I can't speak for everybody, but put some touch-up time in there in the bid, because what I don't want at the end of $100,000 paint job is to pay 2 man-hours for a guy to go through and touch up. I don't want that. It's not worth the paper pushing for any of us, right? So I'm more than happy to pay for that, but I want to pay for that up front. I don't want to get to the end where really, everybody on the project is exhausted. They're pulling their hair out. They've been there 6 months, and now I have a painter saying that, that wall looks that way because it wasn't finished properly. It's like, dude, where were you 2 months ago? Just get in there and touch it up. So the painters that I use, I never see tickets from, because we have this conversation up front. And quite frankly, those that I do receive multiple tickets from, oftentimes I don't go back to them because I can't always push that forward, right? Things are moving quickly in commercial. You may paint first coat early on, second coat, and then we're going to do the finish coat at the end because that's just easier for us. Now, you might have to cut in to vinyl baseboard, 4-inch vinyl cove base, which is pretty standard for us. You might have to cut in the finished ceilings. But I like to have that conversation ahead of time. Unfortunately, the project is not going to be all yours, like oftentimes it is residential. If a painter comes to my house, I leave for the day, and that's it. In a commercial project, there's a lot of things happening. Maybe you're putting in finishing coat, putting on finishing coat while appliances are coming in. And next thing you know, somebody from company X, the refrigerator bumps the wall and scuffs it. I can't have a meltdown. You just got to be there, and you just got to do it. What's very helpful in commercial is, and I can't speak to residential, I'd love to know your opinion on this, but 90% of the projects are flat paint. And if it's not flat paint selected by the architect early on, we like to convince them into flat paint. Now, the pros and cons, the client doesn't. While they oftentimes might not like the finish of the wall necessarily, maybe they're not in love with it. Maybe they're willing to deal with it. But I said, look, This conference room has 20 people, 20 seats. It's tight. Chairs are going to bump into walls. There's a buffet, counter over there. Coffee's going to spill. Grubby paws are going to be all over the walls. You're not going to want to paint this entire room constantly, right? So at least with flat, you can go back and spot treat areas. So most commercial projects will do flat on the drywall and semi on the frames, which are always hollow metal knockdown frames. Of course, sometimes we have some wood pre-hung doors, but the typical application is 5/8 drywall, hollow metal knockdown frames, and solid core wood doors. And 9 times out of 10, these days, the solid core wood doors get painted as well, typically the wall color. So it all kind of blends in. In the 90s and early 2000s, we were doing a lot of pre-finished doors, and we still do those occasionally. Cherry is a big one. Those pre-finished doors come in at the end, and we hang those last. But yeah, again, we try to hold off on the hardware as well when we're swinging doors. But again, sometimes the schedule doesn't allow. So it's very possible that a painter in our world is doing finish coat with vinyl cove base up, doors swinging, lever lock sets on, carpet beneath them. So I have seen that less vendors are using drop cloth, tape, these sorts of things. I don't have an opinion either way. Just if you make a mess, you need to fix it. But a lot of times the guys will just come in with their 1-gallon bucket and they'll go cut around everything. And sometimes, you get something on the carpet or the LVT and they have to clean it up and that's it. But painting and commercial, a little different than residential, I'd say.
Yeah.
And also one of the negatives is that anybody thinks they can be a commercial painter. Right. So, well, all I'm doing is just throwing paint on the wall. I had that. I had a guy who reached out to me many times. I tried him on a job and I thought, he's painting. It's commercial. How bad could it be? Well, he's in there. He's in there running amok. We had all the doors standing up on the wall ready for him to paint. They literally were just pushed down to the ground, landing on screws. It was a mess, Ideally, what I'll do, if schedule allows, which more times than not it does, before we put the ceiling grid up, I'll bring the painter in. And what he'll do is he'll spray. And then I'll run my grid, and then he can back roll and then go away for finish coat. It's typically, the neutral tones, white, grays, and then an accent wall here or there. Which the bane of my existence is like a navy blue eggshell wall, because it's like, what are you doing, man? I'm going to breathe on that wall and you're going to bitch that it needs to be touched up.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating because you're absolutely correct. In the commercial world, you need to treat it as if it's going to get banged up, and flat paint hides those imperfections very well. And I think a lot of guys coming from the residential space where satin is going to be probably preferred, it's easier to clean, have a different mindset from that regard. You did bring up a good point though, because residential is very different than commercial. Any other pain points, examples of issues that you've run into with painters before in the commercial world that you can point out as maybe a roadblock or a speed bump that other painters might be able to avoid?
Sure. Yeah. Be professional in any aspect, right? But if you are doing a new construction home on a 2-acre lot in a community that's under development, nobody's living there. So the guy can kind of show up looking slovenly. He can go in, he can blare his radio, he can smoke his cigarettes, he can paint, and he can get out of there. You cannot do that in commercial. Oftentimes, you are a space within an occupied building. I need you looking professional. I need you acting professional. Oftentimes you'll be in the elevator with other professionals, other women. understand how to operate in those circumstances. There's no smoking on our jobs. If there are radios, they're quiet if we have other tenants nearby. And if you're going out to if you're going out for break or for lunch, please don't park at the front of the building, standing there, dumping your coffee outside, throwing your cigarette butts out the window. I know it seems minor to some, but cigarette butts are a pain in the ass on our projects because the client does not want to see them. Again, if a home's under construction, the homeowner or the developer can say, okay, well, at the end, I'm going to clean this space out or clean this whole property out. I'm not doing that. If I'm doing a 5,000 square feet on the 5th floor and you go down for break outside the lobby and you're smoking and you're throwing cigarette butts and you're leaving your coffee cup and you're spitting your gum down there and then you're going back upstairs to do the job. Well, when I'm done, I'm cleaning the job, but we're not exactly thinking about the vestibule or the parking lot. I don't want to have to do that. So oftentimes the property managers of these large buildings will say, hey, I know you're done, but when the guys were out there, some guy left his receipts in the trash. A lot of times you'll see these little ashtray trash cans outside of these commercial buildings. They're overflow with coffee cups or an old rag, or a paint thinner cans. And it's like, that's not the construction dumpster. So please, for my sake and for your sake moving forward, handle yourself professionally. I want to look at my painter and I want to think, is he my painter or is he my accountant? I don't know. And I like that.
Yeah, no, it's so good. Are there any types of commercial work that you prefer or that might be easier on the painters versus those that might be more difficult? I'm thinking of things like specialized settings like doctor's offices versus like repainting a restaurant, right? There's going to be different qualifications of paint and applications for these different environments. Is there anything in particular that you can talk to on that point?
Yeah, so commercial office fit out, I have found, is the easiest. So if you're doing office space, again, it's more times than not flat paint, and it's somebody's work environment, right? So they're not necessarily critiquing it like you would your home. So they say, oh yeah, it looks good. Rarely do you get the guy or gal up against the wall looking, there's some, that's a heavy nap there, or there's some boogies in the tray that clearly got on a wall. Like that happens, but it doesn't happen much. Retail, you tend to see that a little more. A lot of times they're doing semi or eggshell or satin because it's a franchise look. It's also their baby, right? So, hey, Austin opened a gym and it's his livelihood. He's going to critique the space. Maybe he has franchise standards he needs to adhere to with colors. So it might be a level 5 finish and maroon satin everywhere. That's a freaking nightmare. But it happens, and so my guys love offices because it's, again, I can spray some flat, I back roll, and then I just come in and can work over top of everything. Medical, a lot of times they think they're going to wipe down the walls. They don't. Nobody likes to wipe down the walls, right? Let me do eggshell here so I can wipe down the walls. Okay, timeout. Are you really going to come in on a Saturday, cardiologist guy, and wipe down your walls? Nobody's going to do that. I know that your wife said to pick eggshell at your house because you can wipe the spaghetti sauce off the wall. If you'll do that, fine, not a problem. I'll put on whatever you want, but just think about the usability of the space and the condition of the space down the road. I did a project for a heavy duty road construction company. We built them a building, 40,000 square feet. And these guys come off the road constantly. So there's asphalt, there's dirt, there's tar, there's grease on their boots and their hands, and they go in for training and the training room is a disaster. And this was after trying to convince the client to use flat. He did not want that. He wanted eggshell throughout. And I must have painted that training room, no lie, 5 times, Austin, before he said, give me a price to paint this whole place in flat. I'm done. These guys are animals, you know? So medical users are pretty light. If they want to use a certain product, that's okay. They don't beat the space up too much. We do a lot of industrial where it might be, you know, a bunch of warehouse in the back, and then the warehouse workers come through into the office area. So maybe we'll do flat in those areas as well. If the space is going to get beat up, I recommend flat. Painters will end up loving that because their touch-up list from me at the end or punch list is easy, right? They say, you could scuff this place to death and I could still get it in a half a day with a guy. But don't bring me back if you're doing a high-end restaurant, or please try not to bring me back if you're doing a high-end restaurant in satin at the end, because I basically have to paint this place all over again. And in full transparency, I have paid painters to paint the entire space again because that's what it took. Because going back to what we said previous, I am relationship based. I will not haggle over some money. And one client in particular said the place still didn't look acceptable after touching up. And I said, well, I basically have to paint this whole place over again. And in not so many words, they said, well, then I guess that's what it takes. And of course, they don't want to pay for that. The painter doesn't want to pay for that. So guess who was left holding the $8,000 bag to paint the place again? Me. And I did that. Now, some GCs might say, screw you, painter, do it. I'm not paying you. Or a painter might say, I'm not doing it. And in the grand scheme of the project, is that really where I want to fall between the cracks? If somebody's done and they've done a good job and the client's just not accepting it, who am I to say, screw you, paint it again, I don't care? Again, abundance mindset. There's plenty of work. I have a little sidebar with him. I said, dude, look, I'm going to pay you $8,000 to paint the place again. Now, thankfully, he was a good guy. And he said, look, I'm just going to charge you cost. He was $8,000 on the bid to do. I'll just charge you cost. I think I ended up paying something with a 5 in it. It started with a 5, but it's like, you know what? Like, that's okay, because I'm going to see you again, no doubt, because he was a good painter. And so do what you can to maintain those relationships. Oftentimes it is eating money. Oftentimes it is maybe, hey guys, we only have a week left and everybody's in here. Can you maybe come in at night and finish? Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll just roll the guys to night hours. But office, I'd say, is easiest. Industrial, then maybe medical, which still isn't that big of a deal. Retail, again, pretty particular. I don't have any painters that outwardly tell me what they prefer. I just know in talking to them, you know, you get kind of the eye roll.
Yeah.
You get kind of the eye roll when it's the high-end retail space that and frankly, oftentimes you knock out a retail space with high-end finish and everyone says, good, great job, we're done. And then the franchise, if it's a franchise, will come in and they'll start hanging stuff on the walls, right? They're installing shelving and racking. And it's like, oh my God, you just put 100 anchors into this maroon satin wall and now it needs to be painted again. But again, try not to have the conversation, right? Try not to pigeonhole yourself. Have the conversation. Hey guys, this might cost X, you know?
Yeah. So good. So a few things that I wanted to touch on here, because this entire conversation, we've been talking about the nuances of commercial. And just to summarize, we're looking at building relationships, adding value, don't nickel and dime, use flat paint, be professional, right? But a lot of this comes down to one thing, and that's mindset. Mindset as a business owner. So I want to kind of pivot this conversation into something I'm very passionate about, and that is the mindset of being a business owner. I think most of that comes from something very simple, such as a daily routine. I
Mm,
know we briefly touched on this on our last podcast, but you're a big proponent of daily routines, as am I. Um,
huge.
and I want to hear what your day looks like, and let's just dive into that topic for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, how much time do you have, right? I think maybe we touched on this. Like this is a huge passion of mine, regardless of what industry you are in. Excuse me, but I obsess over my routine and my wellness, and I think that if you are going to have a good company, if you're going to have a company, particularly a company that has employees, it is your responsibility to take care of yourself and to take care of the company. So, a heavy, heavy burden for me is the realization that if I were to keel over and die, I am responsible for helping 7 people. That's just my company, let alone the subs that do $8 to $10 million worth of work with me a year. I'm responsible for putting food on their plate. I need to take care of myself. This Ferrari will not drive with a shitty engine. So for me, I well, I'll say this: it's something that's easy for me because I'm passionate about it too. I would argue that if it's not something you're interested in, get interested in it,
So
right?
yeah, that brings up a good point. What would you say to somebody that thinks a daily routine is a waste of time, and you can go further, faster by investing that time into just your work?
Well, if I told you that I could give you 4 extra hours of work time in your day, what would you say to that? You'd probably like that. Well, maybe it's not 4, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 6. But what I would argue is that the way that you get that is taking good care of yourself and structuring your day, right? So, excuse me, by waking up early, first of all, you are ahead of everybody else. My alarm goes off at 4:30, 7 days a week. For me, that's just something that I want to do. You got to beat, if waking up early is hard for you, do this. Just try and beat the sun, right? Just try and beat the sun. There's a myriad of other tangents we could go off on regarding sunbathing, right? And how just getting some sun early on is helpful.
Absolutely.
But the rest of the world is asleep. So the best part of the day for me is like 4:30 to 6:30 before my 4 and 2-year-old wake up. I love it, right? So for me, I took up transcendental meditation like 15 years ago. So what I do is I'll wake up and I will go downstairs and I'll meditate for 20 minutes, and I'll also journal, right? And if meditation is not your thing, that's fine too. Sit quietly before you do anything, right? Don't jump to your device. Just sit quietly thinking, and brilliant things come from calm minds, right? Osho said that, and shit will just come to you. Not only will brilliant big ideas come to you, but even the little things will come to you, right? Even, well, just out of nowhere, it's, oh shit, I forgot I haven't spoken to my mom in a week. Maybe I should call her later. So if it's helpful, maybe sit in silence first thing, not your bed, right? Because a lot of folks want to fall back in bed. So get out of bed. I get out of bed and I splash cold water on myself, and then I go downstairs, and then I meditate and I journal and I just sit quietly, and I stretch also. So I'll go downstairs, I'll meditate, and then I have like a 15-minute stretching routine that I'll do. And I also have, depending on the workload. So what I like to do is I used to end my day by working out because I realized that it helped me decompress and come home a better person. Maybe it works for you in the morning. It works for me in the morning. I did switch to the morning a couple of years ago because I just found that it really helped keep me sharp throughout the day. It really, and not only that, but if you have a workout under your belt, you're a little less susceptible to eat shittily. At least
Yeah.
I am, right? So, so after I kind of stretch and meditate and journal, I have a cold plunge that I'll go into. I have a sauna that I'll go into. So the morning routine, workout wise, is a little more wellness related,
Yep.
right? So it'll be a 15-minute at 200-degree sauna. It'll be a 3-minute cold plunge. I have some kettlebells, some stretching, just to kind of get the body moving. I'm not looking to set the world record of bench press at 6 a.m. I'm just looking to kind of lubricate the joints, stretch out, sharpen my mind, awaken my body. And then what I'll do is I'll dig into some work. So, and that's frankly, that's at about the time where I'm on that runner's high, as they call it, right after a workout. And then I have some coffee and forget it, man. Like I feel like a jet ready to take off, and
Yeah.
then I dig into my laptop, and my sharpest mind is the morning. So that's where I do the most important things. So the night before, which I guess all of this starts the night before, right? We can get into that, but the best way to get a morning routine going that you like is to is to end your evening.
Get to bed early. Yeah.
Totally. Oh, get to bed early. As we said, I stopped drinking almost 500 days ago. That was fantastic. So, get to bed early, put the device away before you go to bed, sleep in a dark room, 60 some degrees, whatever you like. And you're more likely to wake up early,
Yeah.
But once I've done my routine, I'm ready to kick the world in the dick, man. Really. Like, and there's a whole, and there's a whole thing called like eat the frog, right? Like eat the frog. That's the shittiest part of your day. Like we all have to eat the frog at some point during the day. What is that? Think about that the night before, whether it's a bid proposal, whether it's emailing an attorney regarding an ongoing litigation, whether it's, having to have the hard conversation about firing somebody later in the day. Put those thoughts down in the morning. I like to have a list of like 3 to 5 things that, which are my hard things that I will get done first. And then only then, after I eat the frog, will I get into the correspondence, just the kind of ticky-tack emails. A lot of that stuff gets saved for later in the day. My proposals will always come out early in the morning. And as I've told my staff and my subcontractor base, like you are going to get emails from me in the 5 or 6 o'clock hour, 7 days a week. Please, because I hate when people don't have boundaries. Please understand you do not have to respond. Yeah. This is me trying to leave my house after I drop my kids off at school with a clean plate, because God forbid the world, my world goes kablooey while I'm dropping the kids off at school. I can get on it right away. I don't have to meet that 9 a.m. bid deadline that was previously set, because they already have that. If there's an issue on a job, I can go there right away. I don't have to send some stupid emails,
Yep.
So.
Look, it's interesting because I have almost an identical daily routine, and I got my routine from somebody completely different, right? And I'm shifting it around today, because, or I should say, just recently, because my 2 boys, they're 5 and 8. They wanted to start working out with me, so I actually moved my workouts to the afternoon, so that way I can get in some time with them. But
I could see myself doing that, because just last night I went into my area, which I call my Zen den, right, where I have all my stuff. And I went in there just to kind of add some new things I got and kind of clean up. And my 4-year-old boy came in, and he's trying to pick up some kettlebells. And there's a 35-pound kettlebell, and he's like trying to lift it up. Dad, can you lift this up? I lift it up. He's like, can you put it over your head? I put it over my head. And he's like, wow. And he's fascinated. He's fascinated. And I want him to see all that. So like your children are a little older than mine. My buddies that have kids your age have said the same thing. Like, dude, you'll roll into the afternoon because because you want them to see that. And I do.
Yeah. It's so I have the same exact alarm clock, 4:30 every day. I actually jump into the plunge first. We recently got a sauna, so I kind of switched that up. I do the sauna first, then the plunge, same everything there. And you mentioned eating the frog. It's doing something hard. It's a win for the day. I
Mm.
treat the plunge like there's obviously going to be physical benefits around that. I treat getting in 40-degree water like a big mental challenge. Like the buildup of walking into that water, knowing it's going to hurt and it's going to suck, is so much worse than actually getting in it. And I
Dude,
love
how many times do you go to
plunge.
lift the leg up and you're like, just let me breathe for another second,
I tell myself every time there's no negotiating. Like
Yeah.
there's that little thing in your mind that talks to you. It's really gentle and it wants to keep you in bed. It's okay if you miss today. You tell that little voice in your mind, there's no negotiating. I'm going to do this because it's the hard thing and I'm going to get it done. And my God, you get out of there and you get a workout in. It is the best feeling ever.
Dude.
Um,
And you know what, real quick, if you don't mind me interrupting,
yeah.
if you're listening to this and what we're saying is not your bag, I get it. Try and think of it this way if it will help. If you can do hard things in the morning, it will make the shit that you're dreading later in the day seem very easy.
Yeah.
So I don't care if it's chopping wood. If you need to chop wood, do it first thing. Do the shit you don't want to do first, and you'll stack those little wins, and then the rest of the day is a cakewalk. If you're thinking, how the hell does Austin get in 40-degree wet water? Like, no freaking way. I couldn't do it. That's precisely why he is here now hosting a podcast, talking to some stranger who we met online, because he does hard shit constantly in his day, which makes other things seem really easy.
And I would go a step further. I mean, it's at the point where, like, when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, you get out of that warm, cozy bed and you're shivering and you put on a swimsuit knowing like you're already shivering before you get in the water. I mean, it sucks, right? I don't enjoy a single moment of that until I actually get in the water. Then I know I won.
You know what's funny? Every night when I lay down in bed, I'm so excited for the morning, right? Like, I will take my dogs out at night, which is like the start of my routine, right? And my evening routine. I'll take them out. And as soon as I come back in and I set up my coffee. So I take a multivitamin and fish oil and glucosamine pill. I put them right next to my coffee. I pull the K cup out. I put it right there. I'm buying time for tomorrow. And that shit excites me so much. And then I get in bed. I'm like, oh, I can't wait for the feeling after the cold plunge. I cannot wait. Right. But like you say, then it comes time and it's like, oh shit. But I've already had the conversation, like, you like this, you're doing this, that's it. And maybe if you don't have a cold plunge, a cold shower, it's fine.
I think the cold showers are 10 times worse than the plunge.
Dude.
But regardless, do something hard.
Yeah, right.
But it's interesting. I treat that whole morning routine, to your point, as it's not only a win, but it's also, you are physically stressing out your body, right? It's getting into that fight or flight mode where you're out of breath, you're doing something hard. And as a result, you're actually lowering your inhibition. You're lowering your reaction to anything that may come up during the day. So when, let's say a bad email comes your way, you're going to be able to handle that with ease because you've already gone through something stressful in your day. Your body's already gone through that fight or flight mentality. You've already, built up all the hormones in your body. So everything else later on in the day, you're going to be able to just brush that away and just get on with the next thing. I have some buddies who, own some very successful businesses, and I listen to them talk sometimes, and it's amazing how much emotion they put into a negative situation. It's like, guys, this is a problem. Let's go find a solution to it. It's not something I'm going to react to, right? And I attribute a lot of that to that morning routine, right?
100%. Not only is there the mental piece like you're talking about, but there's also the physiological piece that your blood pressure is just lower, right? You don't have as much cortisol rushing through your body throughout the day. So what might seem like a larger issue to somebody seems like a really small issue because you've stacked those wins. And that's precisely why I've moved it to 7 days a week, and it's been 7 days a week for a while now, because I realized that if I don't do it, I'm miserable. That's just the reality. But I think like one time was like, all right, well, let's sleep in a little on Saturday. And then next thing you know, the kids wake me up. Dude, you want to talk about something that's going to throw me off? Is if my kids wake up me versus vice versa. If the kids jump in, I'm like, holy shit, like I haven't had a chance to do any of my deal. So then it's like I am all thrown off. So unfortunately or fortunately, hard shit happens on the weekends too, particularly when you have small kids, right?
Yep.
Maybe you're at the playground at 10 a.m. and someone emails you something that really bothers you. Well, if I didn't set that foundation in place even on a Saturday, I would be all thrown off. And now that's affecting my parenting. So whatever your routine becomes, try and do it 7 days a week. If you go on vacation, if you stay somewhere else, try and still do some hard stuff in the morning. It will just make the rest of the day much easier.
Yeah. And I would go to say, even let's say you're on vacation, and I know for me, time zones, it screws me up so hard, right? I'm mid 30s. And if I go out to California, I'm all over the place out there for a couple of days. But as long as you're doing it every day, there's no days off. I work out 7 days a week. I am in that body of water 7 days a week. If I'm traveling, I'm taking a cold shower and suffering through that. But there's some hacks also that I can recommend that have worked well for me. And the meditation thing, man, that was hard. It was something that I had never understood it. I would sit there on the floor for like 10 or 15 minutes. I'm like, what am I doing? I could be using this time to answer an email. And also thoughts rush into your head about shit that you need to do today. Right. And I just didn't get it. The thing that changed for me was doing a meditation after a workout. When you're sweating, your blood's still rushing, you're laying down on the floor and your body just starts to like melt. Right. And doing it after a workout for me was when it clicked, and I started experiencing the concept of a blank mind where you're not thinking about anything. And it's fascinating how
my goal is to go through all day like that. That is the best feeling.
Yeah. It's just amazing when you can shut your brain off and actually not let those thoughts rush in, because you'll sit there for a couple minutes and then all of a sudden you start thinking about something and then another thing and you're like, holy shit, why didn't I it's hard, right? And it's
something to remember is that just because it's your thought doesn't mean that it's real.
Yeah.
Where it has to happen, right? So the thing that changed for me meditation wise was I was doing the same thing you were. I was trying to meditate, whatever that meant.
Yeah.
And then like 15 years ago, I close to 20 at this point. I really wanted to do transcendental meditation. And with that, you actually have to pay to learn that. You actually have to go to a guru. And at the time, I think I spent $3,000, whatever. And they actually have to show you how to do that, which on its face to me was like, well, this, what kind of woo-woo shit's this? Like, I'm just giving some guy a few grand and like, I can just stare at a wall and meditate. That's not the case. They give you a mantra and they show you how to do it. And I'll never forget, excuse me, it was during a very chaotic time in my life, arguably a really depressing time in my life. And I went to this place and I met this guru, and I had to bring fruit and I had to bring flowers. And I'm like, what in the hell am I going to get into? Now, of course, the whole world knows about transcendental meditation, and it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. But I went into this room to learn, right? He said, here's what you're going to do. And I'll never forget, next to me, there was somebody literally outside jackhammering a sidewalk. I'm thinking, you can't make this shit up. I come into this room and I can see the guy. There's a window right here and he's jackhammering concrete. Da, 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 da. Okay, what you're going to do? I'm like, what? And he showed me the process and I did it. And he sat next to me and I sat there and I closed my eyes and I did my thing. I did exactly what he said. Next thing I know, 20 minutes later, I hear ding, ding. And I open my eyes and I'm like, how long was that? He said, 20 minutes. You do 20 minutes in the morning and night. Dude, I didn't hear a thing. It's hard to explain. For me, the way I explained it is, it was almost as if Somebody removed the top of my head and literally just everything left. And the way I felt afterwards was like, prior to that was a whiteboard with all sorts of scribbling and all sorts of Goodwill Hunting type shit, right? Like just covering it. But it was almost as if that whiteboard was wiped completely clean.
Yeah.
And I have a couple people in my life who I've turned on to this, and it's changed their lives. And the problem was I became obsessed with keeping that mentality or keeping that feeling throughout the day, which just isn't possible,
Right.
because I am totally zenned out. And then the first phone call comes and I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like, I just want to stay here. And if it's not something, if meditation as a whole is not something you've considered, consider it.
Yeah.
Meditation, exercising, cold plunge, sauna, not drinking alcohol. I mean, all that has done is poured gasoline on myself and my business, and just it's just hockey sticked everything.
And that's why I wanted to have this conversation. Is I think there's a lot of guys out there like, hey, look, I'm listening in because I want to scale a business. I want to get into the commercial space, right? And that's great. I love the ambition. I love the aspiration. But at the end of the day, you need to focus on yourself before you can help other people. And it's the mindset of business is so damn important. And I think a lot of guys look at this as, I'm going to get into that hustle life. Great. When are you going to burn out? Because you're going to if you don't take care of yourself. And that morning routine, man, everybody in business experiences stress. That's part of the job, right? But if you take care of yourself, you have a good daily routine, even if it isn't first thing in the morning. Start in the morning, but do the same thing every day. Make it hard. It can't be easy, or else there's no point. But my God, it will change your life, and it'll change your life not only as a business owner, but as a person, as a father, husband, whatever that is for you. I think everybody needs to be investing their time into that.
I agree with you. And another small little hack that I do is like all of the smart, big time CEO business owners, right? Like anybody who's really a somebody that you read about, part of what they do is wear the same shit every day, right? Yep. So I have zero thought about what I'm going to wear today. Zero. If it's a work day, I'm going to wear a company polo. And if it's a weekend, I'm going to wear a company t-shirt. And I don't have but 5 pairs of jeans that I switch between. And it's on the work day, I slip on these shoes. On the weekend, I slip on these shoes. I mean, there is zero thought into what I'm going to wear this weekend or Monday morning. And that just frees me up to make myself available to put out fires if need be.
I have about 15 black tees that I wear, maybe about, 2 other colored shirts. But I have 15 because I just don't do laundry as often as I should. But
dude, my wife will tell you, if you go upstairs to my bedroom right now, there is a pile of black clothes, black socks, black underwear, black jeans, black shirts, and that's it.
Yeah. Just make your life easy, man. It's you mentioned earlier is like, identifying the things in your life that give you energy and take it away. An easy win is just making your life, getting out of bed, putting on your clothes easy. Another thing that you brought up is the phone. These phones are designed to take your attention away. And I've learned that things like social media, I have to be on there because I'm a business owner. Every other person listening into this more than likely needs to be on there as well. The key is not to let it steal away from your attention. And what I found is, first of all, social media is not designed to give you pleasure. It's designed to engage you and take your attention away. The algorithm seeks out negativity, right? And it's actively, you get into that doom scrolling thing. Talked about, 20 minutes going by meditating. You could spend 20 minutes just scrolling through Instagram and it goes by like that. So what I found is, first of all, having the mindset of social media is not designed to give you to make you happy. And also on most of these phones, on the iPhone in particular, I can't speak to Android, but there's a screen time setting where you can actually lock down your phone certain times of the day. My phone, after 8 p.m., I can't access any apps outside of the things that help me go to bed, like Audible. I have some meditation apps. And I can't touch email until after I wake up, get through my entire morning routine around 6:30, 7 in the morning. That gives me, even if it's just a little friction, it ensures that I don't accidentally see that mail app and open it up during my workout, because that's going to totally screw things up.
Mhm.
So, building in those little wins, building in the foundations to ensure that you're not accidentally taking your attention away, but focusing on the things that are more important, which are going to be things like your relationships in life, your wife, your husband, your kids. They're more important than scrolling on an app.
100%. Yeah. And I have three key points regarding my phone that I like to implement. One is time blocking my day and my usage of my phone,
Yeah.
right? So whatever works for you, go to that phone during set times throughout the day to do certain things. So the only time the only time my phone makes a sound is if it is a phone call. I don't want texts and emails dinging constantly. Then you just become a stimulus rat, right? I'm
Yep.
talking to Austin, and now I have a text, and for God's sakes, don't check your phone during meetings. Not even this, please. Not, because it takes your head away from what you're trying to focus on. So block the usage of your phone. That's one. Two is do not disturb, or airplane mode is a fantastic tool. I am on airplane mode right now because I am giving you my undivided attention. I hate when people don't give me their undivided attention. I hate when I go to lunch to talk about business and somebody's on the phone the entire time. Frankly, the old owner of the company, that was a big thing. And I learned that from him, what not to do,
Yep.
because we would be talking and the phone would ring and he would say, and walk away and come back. Where were we? It's like, dude, I don't even care to have the conversation anymore, So use do not disturb or airplane mode wisely when you're with somebody. Please don't make your phone sound like a music box. Turn it down. And then the third thing I would offer is, this is something that I heard Alex Hermosi point out, is that your phone does have the ability to go to black and gray scale.
Yes.
So if you go into your settings, which I will do oftentimes on the weekends, but definitely during the week, if you set your iPhone to black and gray scale, it's psychologically proven that it will be less interesting to you.
Yeah.
If you open Instagram, or you open any sort of fluff app that you like, and it's bright colors, like that like as you say, designed to get your attention, that's going to grab a hold of you a lot different than it would if you opened anything up and it looked like a newspaper.
Definitely.
And that's really helped me a lot.
The grayscale is something I do every night, and my phone turns to gray around 8 p.m. That's just to ensure that it starts shutting that brain down. The weekends was a hack that I had never considered before, so I'm going to try that out. It's amazing how well it works, because to your point, things look a lot more bland when they're just black and white, and it's like a trigger where, like, all right, this isn't even fun, whatever I'm doing right now, so I'm going to do something else instead.
So maybe I should just be with my kid at the playground and not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, sitting around, if you are a family that sits around on their phones in the living room and nobody's talking, or if you're at the dinner table and everybody's on their phone, put it down, lock them in a drawer, have a conversation.
Please. Me in particular, man, it makes me really sad when I see that happening. If I go to a restaurant, my kids are, like I say, 4.5 and about to be 3. They don't even know what a device is. And that's fine. Listen, different strokes for different folks. Before I was a parent, I would judge this guy. This guy's giving his 2-year-old his iPhone, whatever. Frankly, I still judge. But if you do what works for you, but yeah, it's hard to sit at a pizza shop with 2 little kids for an hour.
Yeah.
and keep them occupied. Well, guess what? It's not hard because of the morning routine that I started. Right, like that's like the easiest freaking thing I do. Not only is it easy, I want to do it. So it really makes me sad when I see families out where nobody's talking to anybody. It's like, it blows my mind. Like, The wife, the husband, and the kid or kids are all on their device. Really? You could have done that at home, which I recommend you not do. But man, we have such a finite amount of time here. And like, I don't know, for certain, a couple decades from now, the kind of end of life, you hear people say like some of the things they regretted most was not spending enough time with their kids, right? Or some people gave too much a shit what other people thought. I mean, no doubt that a couple decades from now, people are going to say, I shouldn't have stayed on my phone as much as I did.
Totally.
I spend too much time on my phone. Go into your settings and see how much time you are on your phone. You can see this if you really want to. Every Sunday around 10 a.m., my phone shows me my screen usage for the week. That is a good primer for me into the next week. Oh shit, I spent that much time. Like, okay, well, tomorrow morning's a new day. I have a new opportunity to set the work week right. And again, that's giving more time to your business and your family, which should be your two priorities. So if you're going in your phone and you're spending 3 or 4 hours a day on social media, like just think of what you could do to the top line of your business if that were 1 hour and you took back those 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. Look, for anybody listening in, Jason runs a multi-8-figure company, and he does it with ease because he sets himself up for success. The 3 things everybody should be focusing on ahead of their business is their mind, body, and relationships. You focus on those things, the business side of that becomes fun and easy. And I wish this is something that we could scream from the mountaintops, because I think it's something that regardless of whether you're owning a business or whether you're in it, take care of yourself first, your family, your mind, your body, and the rest of this just clicks. Jason, thank you so much for being here today, man. Again, you are an inspiration and ultimately somebody that I can relate to in more ways than one. So again, thank you for your time today, brother.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. This was a blast, and let's do part 3.
Let's do it, man.
All right, brother. Take care, man.
All right. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us on that episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that chat as much as I did. Now, listen, if you guys are hungry for more conversations like this, go swing by our website. It's basecoatmarketing.com/podcast. And finally, we are very open to feedback. So if we haven't covered a topic or there's someone you want us to chat with, please let us know. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on the next conversation for painters.